The air in the Chronarium control room crackled with residual energy, a holographic projection of the Martian cityscape flickering intermittently. Doctor, as Thorne stared, his face a mask of conflicting emotions, fascination warring with a growing horror. Elias Finch, perpetually damp with nervous perspiration, fidgeted beside him, adjusting the dials on a nearby console. The energy signatures intensifying, Elias mumbled, his voice very audible above the hum of the temporal displacement equipment. The paradox level is approaching critical. Thorne barely registered his concern. His gaze was fixed on the image of the colossal robots, now wreaking havoc amidst the once thriving Martian metropolis. They moved with a terrifying grace, their movements precise, efficient, devastating. And the designs were unmistakably his. The chassis architecture, the energy conduits, those are based on my Etherian resonance matrices, Thorne exclaimed, his voice strained. But I haven't built anything like this, not even in my theoretical designs. He spun away from the projection, pacing the confined space. There's a significant temporal displacement event within the construction cycle. Something is altering the past. The Sumerian transmission, a fragmented recording recovered from a crumbling archive, replayed in his mind. The echo unraveling threads, awakening guardians. The convergence. What did it mean? Was this destruction a consequence of those cryptic warnings? Suddenly, the projection shifted. A new figure emerged from the chaos, a figure startlingly similar to Thorne himself, but younger, his face harder, his eyes devoid of empathy. The doppelganger manipulated a holographic interface, fine-tuning the robot's targeting systems. By the Ethereum, Thorne breathed, taking an involuntary step backward. It's me. Before he could fully process the revelation, the laboratory door was burst open. 4 figures, clad in dark, featureless masks, strode into the control room, their movements fluid and coordinated. They carried strange, cylindrical weapons that emitted a low, pulsating hum. "We're under attack!" Elias cried, scrambling for a weapon. "Maintain temporal shielding," Thorne commanded, but his voice lacked its usual authority. "Elias, initiate emergency lockdown." The masked figures moved with unsettling speed. One deflected Elias's hastily fired ray pistol, with a force field emanating from his weapon. Another neutralized Thorne's attempts to activate the Chronarium's defensive systems. "Who are you?" Thorne demanded, his voice tight with suppressed fear. "What do you want?" The lead figure stopped a few feet from Thorne, his masked face tilted downwards. A synthesized voice, devoid of inflection, echoed through the room. The echo must be silenced. The threads must be severed. With a coordinated motion, the masked figures launched a barrage of energy blasts. Thorne and Elias dove for cover behind a reinforced console, the air thick with the smell of ozone. "They're targeting the temporal core," Elias shouted, his voice laced with panic. If they destabilized the Chronarium, were trapped. Thorne's mind raced. He had to understand what was happening. Who were these masked figures? Why were they attacking? And why were his designs being used to build instruments of destruction on a long-lost Martian civilization? He remembered a fragmented note found amongst his late father's papers, a reference to a guardian society dedicated to preserving the integrity of time itself. Could these masked figures be agents of that society, acting to prevent him from uncovering a dangerous truth? Or were they something far more sinister? "Elias, reroute power to the Ethereum disruptor," Thorne ordered, his voice regaining its authoritative edge. "We need to disable the shields." As Elias worked furiously at the console, Thorne noticed something peculiar about the masked figures' movements. They were anticipating his actions, countering his strategies with uncanny precision. "They know what we're going to do," he murmured. "It's as if they're reading our minds." Suddenly, the laboratory's temporal shielding flickered and died. The holographic projection of Mars vanished, replaced by a swirling vortex of temporal energy. The Chronarium groaned under the strain. "We're losing temporal stability," Elias yelled. "If we don't stabilize the core, we'll be scattered across time." Thorne knew he had only one chance. He initiated a risky maneuver, overriding the Chronarium's safety protocols and attempting to create a localized temporal distortion, hoping to disrupt the masked figure's ability to anticipate his moves. The laboratory shuddered violently. The masked figures staggered, momentarily disoriented. "Now, Elias, deploy the Ethereum disruptor," Thorne shouted. Elias fired the disruptor. A beam of concentrated Ethereum energy slammed into one of the masked figures, shattering his force field and sending him crashing against a wall. But the momentary advantage was fleeting. The lead figure, seemingly unaffected by the attack, raised his weapon and fired a concentrated burst of energy directly at Thorne. Thorne braced for impact, but a sudden surge of temporal energy deflected the blast, sending him hurtling backward. He landed hard against a control panel, the world spinning around him. As his vision cleared, he saw something that chilled him to the bone. The lead-masked figure wasn't aiming at him. He was focusing his weapon on the Chronarium's temporal core, preparing to unleash a devastating temporal pulse. He's going to erase the entire timeline, Thorne gasped, struggling to his feet. Suddenly, a familiar voice echoed through the laboratory. You cannot stop what is destined to be. The voice was synthesized, distorted, but undeniably the same as the lead-masked figure's. Thorne looked up, and his eyes widened in disbelief. The masked figure's helmet retracted, revealing the face of his younger self, the same face he had seen manipulating the robots on Mars. But how Thorne stammered, utterly bewildered. The younger Thorne smiled, a cruel, mocking expression. I am the Echo, Aris, the inevitable consequence of your ambition, the guardian of a future you will never see. With a final, chilling smile, the younger Thorne activated the temporal pulse. The laboratory was engulfed in a blinding flash of white light. When the light subsided, Thorne found himself standing in a completely different location. He was in a vast, desolate landscape, bathed in the eerie glow of a double sunset. Above him, swirling in the sky, were fragments of shattered timelines, remnants of worlds lost to the temporal pulse. He was adrift in the sea of time, a prisoner of a future he had inadvertently created. And in the distance, he saw a figure approaching, a familiar, masked silhouette, walking towards him with an air of cold, implacable certainty. The hunt had just begun.